Egypt is preparing for war against Israel. They are currently moving soldiers to Sinai Peninsula and they are preparing to fight against the Israelis. Now, the Israelis are not taking this lightly because they know the history between the Israelis and the Egyptians. They know what the Egyptians are capable of doing. Those of you who are not familiar with Egypt history, now, the Egyptians are the only people who has ever defeated the Israelis. It is highly controversial, but we will come back to that particular story. I will, explain it into details for you guys to understand what exactly happened in 1973. But before that, let me read this for you guys. Egypt prepared to defeat Israel. This was posted by Geopolitical Prime, and this is trending across the whole world. Now, there are some words I don't want to use in the article, right? As IDF continue to unalive, okay, I don't want to use some words, right? Okay, let me skip some of them, right? Okay, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah himself has announced that Egypt is ready to defeat Israel. The warning comes as Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vocally complained to US President Donald Trump about an apparent Egyptian military build-up in Sinai, near the border with Israel. The Egyptian army is establishing military infrastructure in the area and extending runway at local air bases so fighter jets can operate from there. The Israelis also claim Egypt has constructed underground facility that could be used for storing missiles. Well, this is a big problem for Israel. In fact, I think we need to go into history. I have to explain to you guys why this is a big problem for Israel. History is about to repeat itself. In order to understand what is happening, I think we need to go back in history. In the year 1967, the Israelis defeated Egypt, Syria, and Jordan combined. They defeated them in 6 days. Popularly known, that war is popularly known as the 6 Days War. Now, they took control of Sinai Peninsula, which belongs to the Egyptians. They took control of the Golan Heights, and now even Gaza. They took control of Gaza completely. Now, when the Israelis, defeated these Arab countries back in 1967, it was only Egypt that was able to fight back and reclaim their territory, that is Sinai. All the other Arab countries were not able to fight back. Note, it was in 1967 that the Israelis took control of the Golan Heights, which belongs to Syria. Note, up to date, the Syrians have not been able to take back the Golan Heights. Up to date, the Israelis still control Gaza. They've not been able to take it back. But it was only the Egyptians who were able to take back their territory back in 1973, which is popularly known as the 10th Ramadan War or the October War or Yom Kippur War. You see, the main reason why the Israelis performed excellent back in 1967 was because of America. America supplied them with a lot of weapons. The whole war was based on American warfare. It was, all about America. That is a fact. You see, when the Israelis were threatening to invade Egypt, what the Egyptians did was they went to the Americans in the West asking for weapons. But clearly the West and America refused to give Egypt weapons. But the Soviet Union came to the rescue of the Egyptians, right? So the whole warfare was based on air superiority. So the Soviet Union supported the Egyptians with, I think, around 200 MiG fighter jets. I stand to be corrected with the exact figure, but I think around 200 MiG fighter jets. But they underestimated, back then, I think the Egyptians underestimated the Israelis. Now, unfortunate for the Egyptians, one Egyptian pilot defected. By then, this MiG fighter jet was, newly produced. I think the MiG-27, something like that. I stand to be corrected. MiG 20 something. Yes, one Egyptian pilot defected and gave out this newly Soviet Union produced MiG fighter jet to the Israelis. So the Americans and the Israelis studied this MiG fighter jet, and they knew everything about it, and they launched this particular surprise attack on Egypt and these Arab countries. Well, according to the Egyptians, the Israelis didn't declare war. It was a surprise attack, and that is why they don't regard it as defeat. But to be honest with you, defeat is defeat. That is war. Surprise attack is part of war. So in my opinion, I think it is a defeat. Now let's come back to how the Egyptians defeated the Israelis. The main reason why I am doing this video is because you guys constantly, you are on my neck. You're asking me to talk about the Middle East. Look, I've learned a lot about the Middle East, but I barely talk about it because of, how these apps behave. Now, if you guys want me to continue talking about what is happening in the Middle East, this video would determine whether I'll continue talking about the Middle East or not. So please, if you want me to continue talking about the Middle East, just hit on the like button and type yes in the comment section if you want me to continue talking about the Middle East. Now let's continue. Now, the June 1967 Egypt defeat, Egypt saw it as a humiliating defeat for them because obviously Egypt have a very long history. Egypt is an ancient country compared to Israel. Israel was formed just in 1948. So the Egyptians were there when Ben-Gurion decided to declare Israel as a state. So to them it was humiliating defeat for them. In fact, as I said earlier, the Israelis became more arrogant, right? But when the Egyptians launched the attack, they were supported by the Soviet Union. Now, the Soviet Union learned their mistake back in 1967, then decided to use a different approach completely. Now, in the year 1967, the Soviet Union tried to combat the Egyptians with fighter jets. And I've told you, those of you who follow me, I've told you guys this before. The Americans were very good in fighter jets. So the Soviet Union realized that trying to combat the Americans in air, the Americans were far ahead in terms of fighter jets. So the Soviet Union decided to go in a different approach altogether. They decided to use ground warfare. So they came in with some of their best air defense systems. In less than 3 days, or in less than 3 to 4 days, the Israelis lost almost half of their fighter jet. The Israelis, yes, because of the approach that the Egyptians came in with. The Israelis' losses in 1973 war was catastrophic, in fact. But now, when you search for these things on the internet, they will tell you that yes, the Israelis were being defeated and the Americans decided to step in, blah, blah, blah. That is how they are trying to change the narrative. But the fact is, anybody who have made research extensively about that war, the fact is the Egyptians won. And that is why up to date the Egyptians celebrate this October war as a victory day. Yes, today in Egypt, everybody can make research. They celebrate every October as their victory day. Just like what the Russians do, right? When the Russians won over the Nazis, Germany, they have victory day parade in Russia. Exactly, something similar like that also happens in Egypt every October. Now, finally, the war ended in 1982 through diplomatic means. This is where the controversy is. Now, according to the Israelis, they believe that the war ended through negotiation. They gave out Sinai Peninsula willingly to the Egyptians. But, this is far from the truth. Because of their heavy losses in the 10th Ramadan war, they were forced. They had no option than to give out Sinai Peninsula to the Egyptians. Now, the question is, when they launched the 1967, war, they took over the Golan Heights. Why didn't they give back the Golan Heights to the Syrians? Why didn't they give back Gaza to, the Palestinians? Why did they decide to return only back Sinai? Every war obviously ends through diplomatic means. Even the Russian-Ukraine war obviously will end through diplomatic means. But the winner determined the terms and conditions. Now, the main purpose of the Egyptians launching this 1973 war was to take back Sinai Peninsula. And obviously, they took back Sinai Peninsula. So the Egyptians see this as a victory for them. Their main aim for the war was achieved. Why didn't the Israelis hand over Sinai Peninsula for them? Why did they decide to fight with them if they wanted to give back Sinai Peninsula? This is common sense. Let's, think about it critically. Let me use, Russia and Germany as an example. When the Russians won against the Nazis, Germany in Second World War, there were some territories they took over, Kaliningrad. There were some German territories they took and they gave it to Poland, and there was some Poland territory they also took and gave it to Ukraine. The winner determined the terms and conditions of every war. So clearly, their main objective was achieved. So clearly, they have every right to see the Yom Kippur War as a victory for them, right? So, bottom line, what I want to let you guys understand is these Egyptians are very tough, and the Israelis know this. They know what the Egyptians are capable of doing. Today, you barely hear about the Egyptians in the media, but these guys are armed to the teeth. Many of you don't know this because you don't see them, out there all the time. So you don't know what they are capable of doing, and people underestimate them a lot. In fact, when Benvolio declared Israel as a state back in 1948, one of the first countries to stand up against Israel was Egypt. Are you aware that Egypt was the leader of the Arab League when the Israelis or Ben-Gurion declared Israel as an independent country? It was Egypt that led the Arab world to fight against the to fight against the Israelis. Now, whether I will continue talking about the Middle East or not depend on the success of this video. You guys constantly ask me to talk about the Middle East. So if you want me to continue talking about the Middle East, hit on the like button and let me know down in the comment section. Do you want me to continue talking about, do you want me to give you guys this Middle East update? I don't know whether to continue or not. If you want me to continue, type yes in the comment section. If you want me to focus on, Europe and, this Russia issues and America, NATO, please type no in the comment section. Or if you want me to cover both as well, just type yes in the comment section, right? So these videos are very important, whether I'll talk about the Middle East or not. I really appreciate you guys, your love and support for this platform. And I'll continue to do my best to bring you guys this update. Shalom. See you guys in the next episode.